Welcome to the Mighty Emotions podcast. I'm your host, Giselle. I'm a certified emotions coach, and I teach you how to respond better to your emotions so you can feel better in your life. My mission is to show you how to work with your emotions to become more emotionally resilient. Your emotions are not designed to overpower you, they're designed to empower you. On this podcast, I share what our emotions are, how to understand them and work with them, and the tools you need to reclaim your power and get unstuck from emotional pain so you can find fulfillment in your life again. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's get into the episode. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to another episode. I hope you've been enjoying the interviews I've been having with my guests. I'm hoping to have some really amazing guests on, and they're not all going to be doing the same thing. They're going to be people in different realms, in different worlds, but they're still human, and that's the whole point of this show, is to highlight the beauty in our humanity and to highlight that all of us have a journey that we're on, and we're going to face discomfort along that journey, but that we can move through it. There was a time in my life where I didn't think I could move through it. There was a time in my life where I was just stuck in it and I thought I would be forever. And I used all these things to try to go around it or go over it or go around, and it was only by going through it really that I was able to find freedom, and likewise with my guests. So I'm really excited for future guests to be on. Let me know, leave a comment, leave a review on Apple if you've enjoyed those episodes so that I know, because there's so much beauty there. I really want to talk today about identity, who we think we are, who we are. What does it all mean? We're going to have a little existential crisis today on the episode. If you are someone who's known me in real life for a long time, I've had a lot of existential crises, okay? A lot of them. And it's been so beautiful to evolve, of course. But when I started really diving into my emotions and understanding them more deeply, particularly shame, I was like, wow, I didn't really understand what was happening at that time when I was in this identity crisis of like, who am I? What does it all mean? What am I here? What is my purpose? What am I here for? So if you can relate to any of that, then I hope this episode will help you. It really is interesting how we look at identity and self-concept and how the world sees us versus how we see ourselves. And there's so much fighting about identity and so much politicizing of it. What identity really is, it's just the facts about who you are, right? It's not the embellishment. It's literally the what culture do you come from? What group do you belong to? What age are you part of? What gender, what like whatever it might be, how do you identify? It's not about how you identify. It's about what the characteristics are that you embody, what the qualities are, what the traits are. Are you the funny one? Are you the introverted one? Like all of those things, those qualities make up your identity. I had a client in a session as we were processing some shame that she's going through ask me like, well, how do I find my identity? What is my identity? I feel like I don't have my identity because the identity is shifting with this certain relationship dynamic. And that's something that happens because the character that you play in a relationship is going to change when the other person changes or when they move away or when something happens. Like that identity that you see yourself as is always shifting. It's fluctuating always. But there are certain elements of your identity that are always stagnant and always the same. So that's what makes identity this kind of convoluted thing, like similar to our emotions. But it's really important to understand it because when we don't have a sense of identity, we are in panic mode. We're terrified. Like all of us have that need for belonging. All of us have that need for validation and attention. And despite what a lot of people will say, there's nothing wrong with that need. How we get it met is a different thing. Maybe we need to be very mindful about the sources that we go to for that. But the actual need is just human. It's okay, right? When you're getting it from healthy sources, it's good. It boosts you, it fuels you, it helps you go further in your life when you're not on your own, but you're part of a group of some kind, whether it's your family, whether it's your friend group, whatever it may be. Right. So it is an important need and we don't need to discard it. We just need to be mindful about where we're getting it met from. Right. What are the sources? But I was telling her, you don't need to find your identity. You have an identity. You have an identity. And you have multiple because there's the identity that other people are going to look at you as, and then there's the way you see yourself. And that's really the self concept, right? The self image. But it's not about your identity necessarily changing. It's about how you define it changing, right? How you explain that identity, how you understand, how you perceive it. So it's not about finding your identity. It's about defining your identity. And what I mean by that is there are so many ways that we get to define ourselves and describe ourselves. And oftentimes, other people's definitions of us become our definitions, right? By default, right? It's easier. Other people told me, oh, you're a really smart girl. Smart girls do this, blah, 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 blah. So you just fall in line. Like, okay, I can get along with that. And then a different part of your identity starts to crop up later on, or you develop a different character because you've been exposed to different things and you desire a different path. And you don't lose that, original, like, oh, smart girl, whatever, but it gets to be redefined, right? It's no longer like, oh, I'm limited by these activities, or I'm limited to this behavior or whatever it is, to these interests because I have this identity. It's like, wait, I get to have this identity and explore it in all these different ways. I get to have this identity and have my own opinion of it. That's the beauty of it. Like, that's the beauty of it. That when you are aware of your identity and you're aware of how you define it, but you're not limiting yourself to any one definition, you understand that you get to have a subjective opinion, right? Your self image, yours, how you see yourself, you get to define it, right? You get to say, this is what it means to be this type of person. And you get to live out that definition. And other people might disagree. And I mean, they're in their own world, they're in their own identity. And maybe you showing up a certain way, gets them to feel threatened in some way because they feel limited. But that's good because that emotion that shows up for them, the feeling that shows up for them, is for them to evolve. So your evolution, you working with your shame, you working with your fear, you processing all of that and coming to this clarity and this alignment about who you are because you've defined it. That evolution is going to like shake the ground, it's going to cause shaky ground for other people, but that's a gift for them even if they don't see it that way, right? You've done them a favor essentially because now they need to evolve. They need to step into, okay, well, who am I now? What does this mean? Oh, I get to see this in a more expansive way. Like, that's what growth is really about. Growth is about expansion. It's about a wider view. It's about getting bigger. Like, if you look at a seed and a tree, like a mighty oak, which is what this whole brand that I've started is about. Like, the mighty oak is the inspiration behind Mighty Emotions because it's just this majestic tree that weathers so many storms, that's strong, that's sturdy, and it's ultimately so full of wisdom. And it's a representation of what it means to process our emotions and what it means to take small but mighty actions, because it starts off as a little seed and it becomes this gigantic tree. It evolves by getting bigger. It evolves by expanding. It evolves by reaching new heights, and i.e. new levels, new perspectives, right? That's what growth is about. And so whenever we have outgrown a belief or whenever we have outgrown a perspective, discomfort is going to come up. Discomfort has to come up to get us to expand. When we get to that edge, it's like, oh, I'm getting bigger. Oh, I'm seeing this in a bigger way. Oh, I'm widening my perspective of this. I'm changing my relationship to this. I can hold more now. That's what expansion is about. It's not comfortable. I don't think it's really comfortable for the tiny tree, the tiny little sprout to push through that seed and to continue to grow and to have to fight off weather and animals and all these things, but it gets there. It keeps growing, it gets there. It moves through the discomfort, it gets there. And that's us. That's us as humans, right? That's what we're meant to do. We're meant to listen to these signals and go, oh, I'm growing. Oh, I'm expanding. Oh, I'm at an uncomfortable edge because it's time to get bigger. I can no longer stay here. I can no longer see myself in this way. And it's not about fighting other people to see you the way you see yourself. Allow other people to have their perspective and their view. Everyone is coming from their story, their personal history. Like, it has nothing to do with you or I, right? As much as we like to think it does. Each of us is viewing the world through our own lens, through our own histories. There's no right or wrong. It's just what it is, right? It's not right or wrong. And that's what I want you to gather, is that there's no inappropriate emotion. And there is only an emotion. And there's no right or wrong identity. There's only what is the aligned identity for you. What is true? What is truly how you are? And where is there shame showing you that it's time to redefine that that view of yourself? I don't want to say version of yourself, but for example, if you've grown up your whole life and had people commenting on your body and developed discomfort with your body and shame around your body, maybe it's time to review that and go, what do I actually think about my body? Like, really discarding all of their opinions and views and all of this and just looking objectively, right? What's wrong with it? Why do I need to change something about it? Because when we're trying to change it and doing it from that place of not really listening to our shame, we're trying to get rid of that shame by making these changes that we think will make other people happy. But that's not what shame is trying to signal to us. Shame is trying to signal to us, it's time to stop listening to the outside opinions and form your own opinion. Maybe you'll come to a similar conclusion, maybe, but come to that conclusion for yourself. This is you. This is your identity. You're molding this. And there's so many layers to it. There's so many, characteristic traits and qualities and features of your life, different roles that you play, and you get to define what it means within each of those roles. You get to define it, not society, not your parents, none of that. And I struggled for this for most of my life because I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere in my family, in my groups. Like, I just felt like a misfit, right? And now with the wisdom I've gained through doing this work, I realize that I couldn't have fit in those groups, and that's okay. I didn't belong in those groups. I was incompatible with those groups because we didn't share the same values. We might have shared similar experiences, but on the outside, but not, we didn't really share the same feelings or the same perspectives about things. But that's okay, because along the way, I have found the places where I am aligned with people. I have found the groups where I do belong, where I haven't needed to, have that internal struggle or have that shame come up. And in those groups, I don't feel any shame about myself. There's no hatred. There's only compassion and love. And that is what I hope that you start to gain and feel as you do this work and as you honor your emotions and you get honest with yourself and you start to ask yourself more expansive questions, that you just keep growing. You keep developing this beautiful relationship with yourself. But you have to look at the shame. You have to be willing to look at that and the story that you have tied to your identity and your self-image, because it affects how you show up in the world and it limits you from finding the places, the people, the opportunities that are most aligned for you. So start by looking at what are your roles? Are you a wife, a mother, a father, a brother, a sister? What are the roles that you have? What are the just facts that make up your identity? What's your culture? Where did you grow up? And maybe you don't identify with your culture, right? Maybe there's a culture that you identify with more. There's a culture that you love more, right? I'm Caribbean. I love being Caribbean. I love being Trini. Hey, hey, Carnival, all of that. Love my culture. But for whatever reason, ever since I was young, I really identified with French culture. Like the baguettes and the cafes and the terrasse and all of that, the language. I was not born there, but I love that culture. And my husband is French and my family is French now. So, manifestation and how that works. But when I'm in France, I feel so good. I mean, I feel great when I'm at home too, but I really enjoy both cultures. And I get to. We live in this global, beautiful, multicultural world. I probably have some distant ancestor who was French. But the point is, you get to decide what are the features of your identity, right? And this is about doing it with acceptance. Not saying, oh, I reject that. Oh, no, I don't want that. And don't focus on that. Okay. I want you to just focus on the parts that you accept and the parts that you love and the parts that bring you joy. Don't focus on the parts that don't. Uh, we don't need to do that. Because when you start to focus on the parts that are aligned, the other stuff will fall away. But you have to first make the honest admission to yourself if shame is coming up, that this is something that you don't feel good about. And then you need to look at that and go, well, who taught you to not feel good about that? How did you learn not to feel good about that? Where did you learn that? And what is your opinion? How can you redefine this so that it serves you, so that it has a meaning that ultimately serves you? So, with that, I love you for listening. As always, you are beautiful and amazing just as you are, but you're evolving and expanding every single moment of every single day. You're becoming that mighty oak. You're growing. And with that, we need to revisit the things that we think about the world and our perspectives and the things we think about ourselves. We get to revisit them because they need to evolve as we evolve. So let yourself evolve and do so by being gentle with yourself. Okay? I'll talk to you in the next episode. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. It would mean so much if you could subscribe, leave a review, share with your friends and family, and let me know what you think by going to my Instagram at mighty_emotions and connecting with me and letting me know what you loved about today's episode. It really means a lot that you support this podcast, and I love coming to you each week with a new episode. So be sure to subscribe, let me know what you think, and take care of yourself.